come closer. Let's be honest, some idioms are overused, especially in exams like IELTS. For example, I was on cloud nine. Oh, it was raining cats and dogs. I don't think I've ever heard a native speaker use these idioms. So what kind of idioms do native English speakers actually use every day? Let's find out. Hello, it's Keith from, yes, you guessed it, the Keith Speaking Academy. Here to help you become a more confident speaker of English. Very good. So today, well, idioms. Students, right, often memorize idioms like to be over the moon, okay? But actually, in IELTS speaking, the examiner has heard these 1,000 times. So in this video, I want to show you 10 real idioms that native English speakers actually do use every day, but idioms you may not have heard before or you're not so familiar with, right? I want to show you how you can use these naturally in conversations and especially in the IELTS speaking test. Okay? What I'll do is I'll go through the idioms, I'll give you the meaning, the pronunciation, a real life example, and then how you can use it in the IELTS speaking test. If you are an IELTS student, this is going to be really, really helpful. If you're just a general English student, it's going to be really, really helpful. Okay. Oh, also, as normal, there is a PDF. You can download these just to review them and practice them. There's also a nice story and a song in there that is a really lovely way to review and help these idioms soak into your English being. Are you ready? Let's do it. Okay, number one, to grab a bite, or we can say to grab a bite to eat. And the meaning here is just to get something to eat, but quickly. Maybe you rush into a restaurant and eat quickly, or you get something in a coffee bar quickly. It's just to get something to eat quickly. Pronunciation, grab a bite. Think of one sound, grab a bite. Like bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bite, grab a bite. Grab a bite. You could say, for example, let's grab a bite before we go to the cinema. Okay? Or I'm really hungry. I just need to grab a bite before I go to work. IELTS Speaking Part 1, talking about food, you could say, if I get up late, I'll grab a bite at a coffee shop on the way to work. Part 2, describe a time you were in a hurry. You could say, I grabbed a bite at a small Italian restaurant. Part 3, eating habits. You could say, nowadays, people often grab a bite instead of cooking at home. There you've got it. Don't go and grab a bite. Stay with me for number 2. Okay, number 2, to be broke. Now, you probably know the verb to break, right? Twig, break, to break it. And you probably know to be broken. This is my old computer. Doesn't work. It's very old. It is broken. But this idiom is to be broke. And it means to have no money. Look. I'm broke. No money. So I could say, for example, I'm sorry, I can't go out to the pub. I'm broke. Now, in IELTS Speaking, Part 1, talking about money, you could say, when I was a student, I was often broke. Part 2, talking about describe a difficult time. After losing my job, I was totally broke. Part 3, talking about finance or youth, maybe. You could say, well, nowadays, many young people are broke because of high living costs. All right, let's move on. Right, number 3. I'm going to do some ASMR to introduce number 3. Twig, paper, and now a hole. You see the hole? Idiom number 3 is to pick holes in something. And the meaning is really to find small mistakes or weaknesses in something. Often it's when you're being critical or unfair. For example, you might say, he loves picking holes in everything I say. Now, with pronunciation, pick, it's a short I, pick, and hole. Look at the mouth, holes. I wouldn't link, I would have a pause here. Pick holes. Okay, to pick holes. Now, in IELTS Speaking Part 1, talking about personality, you could say, I try not to pick holes in other people's ideas. Part 2, describing a disagreement, maybe. You could say, during the meeting, my boss picked holes in my proposal. That feeling of it's unfair, right? And part 3, talking about maybe teamwork or critical thinking, you could say, well, in meetings, some people focus on picking holes instead of offering solutions. Okay. Are you the kind of person who picks holes in other people's ideas? Okay, let's move on. Okay, number 4 is nothing to smile about. Number 4 is to be under the weather. Imagine the clouds above and it's raining and I'm here under the weather. But idiomatically, it means to feel ill. You don't feel well. You feel sick, right? I'm a bit under the weather today. We often say I'm a bit or I'm a little under the weather. Notice the stress, under the weather. D, under the weather. I feel under the weather. I'm under the weather. I was under the weather. I will be under the weather. Remember that trick that when you're practicing phrasal verbs or idioms, just change the tense 2 or 3 times. Great practice for fluency and confidence. So, using this in IELTS speaking, in part 1, questions about health, of course, you might say, well, if I'm under the weather, I usually stay at home and rest. Part 2, maybe describing a time you were sick. Well, last week I felt under the weather for a few days, actually during my holidays. That sometimes happens, right? When you go on holiday, suddenly, boom, you fall sick. You feel under the weather because, I don't know, you suddenly relax and your body collapses. Happens to me quite a few times. Number 3, IELTS Speaking Part 3, talking about topics of health and lifestyle. You might say, people often feel under the weather when they don't get enough sleep. There's a correlation there, right? Okay, I hope you're not feeling under the weather because we're moving on to number 5. Number 5 is lovely and it's to be swamped. Now, a swamp is this. So lots of grass and mud and reeds. And if you stand in that, you sink and you're surrounded by horrible things. And it means to be extremely busy. You may be familiar with to be snowed under. Well, this is even stronger, even busier, right? I'm swamped. You can be swamped with emails, swamped with meetings. I'm swamped with reports. I was swamped with meetings. I'm going to be swamped with emails and so on. Remember that trick? Just change the tense and make it into a full sentence. Even better practice. Swamped. Pronunciation. Pt, pt. Swam. Swam. Swamped. Swamped. I'm swamped. You're swamped. We're swamped. Okay, nice. Using this in IELTS speaking, maybe, let's have a look. Get my notes up. In part 1, talking about work or study, of course, right? I've been swamped with assignments lately. Part 2, describing a busy time. When I started my new job, I was swamped with tasks. Tasks. Good, right? Part 3, talking about modern life. Nowadays, we are swamped with information because of the internet. Lovely. Lots of ideas. Let's move on to the next one. Now, number 6, you may have heard before, is to make up your mind. To make up your mind, meaning to decide something, right? Pronunciation, often, if you like, you can link makeup as in make up, the face, make up your mind. The your often becomes ya, make up your mind. Of course, you make up your mind, I make up my mind. We often say can't make up your mind. She can't make up her mind. She couldn't make up her mind. Okay. Everyday use, you could just say, well, I can't make up my mind what to say at this party or at this speech, on this speech, in this speech. Using in IELTS, I guess the topic of decision making and making decisions is quite common. So in IELTS part 1, talking about decisions, for example, are you good at making decisions? Well, no, I'm terrible at making up my mind. Part 2, describe a difficult decision. I had to make up my mind about changing jobs. Part 3, again, decision making. People need to take time to make up their minds about major life choices, such as getting married or starting a new career. Okay, there are some ideas. I've made up my mind. It's time to move on to idiom number 7. Now, this is cold water. Something interesting I noticed when I was living in China, that people tend to drink hot water a lot. In England, people often drink cold water. I mean, not even room temperature, but like with ice, really cold. Idiom number 7 is to be in hot water. Not literally, idiomatically, but you can imagine the metaphor. If you are in hot water, you're in trouble. And it means to be in trouble, and probably you're going to have problems or some kind of punishment. Probably, right? We say to be in hot water or to get into hot water. To be in or to get into, then hot water. Okay. Everyday use. You could use this, for example, at work. You could say, well, I got into hot water for missing the deadline. In IELTS speaking part 1, you could talk about work. You could talk about school, right? I was in hot water for being late. Often happens. Part 2, describing a difficult situation. I got into hot water when I forgot to submit my assignment. Will probably happen. In part 3, talking about society and maybe about the government, for example, you could say politicians often get into hot water for saying the wrong thing. Nowadays, they get cancelled very, very easily. Anyway, let's not get into hot water. Let's move on to idiom number 8. Right, number 8 is to be up in the air. Like one sound, up in the air. Up in the air. Now, it's not literal, although there was a film called Up in the Air. Oh, with George Clooney. And what was the name of the girl from Pitch Perfect? Anna Kendrick. And it was about them being up in the air, literally flying. That's literal. But when we're talking idiomatically, up in the air means something is not yet decided. And it's something is up in the air, not you. You can't say, I'm up in the air. No, that means I'm literally flying. But something is up in the air. Pronunciation, up in the air, up in the air. It's like one sound, up in the air, with the, up in the air. I'm up, no, I'm not up in the air. The plans are up in the air. The choice is up in the air. My next video is up in the air. It's not yet decided, okay? An everyday example, we could say, talking about holidays, yeah, our travel plans are still up in the air. We don't know yet. When it comes to IELTS speaking, well, in part 1, if you're talking about plans, you could say simply, well, my weekend plans are up in the air at the moment. Part 2, describing future plans. You might say, I'm thinking about moving abroad, but it's still up in the air. Great sound, up in the air. Part 3, decision making, society. You might say, many people's career plans are up in the air because of the economy or because of the recession, whatever. Okay, up in the air. Have you got anything up in the air at the moment? I wonder. Let me know. In the meantime, let's move on to the next idiom. Right, for idiom number 9, a quick test for you. What's this? Ear. This? Nose. Mouth. Chin. And if you keep your chin up, it means to stay positive in a difficult situation. To keep your chin up. I keep my chin up. He keeps his chin up. You keep your chin up. Exactly. Okay. So stay positive in a difficult situation. For example, a friend might say, if you're having a difficult time, don't worry, things will get better. Just keep your chin up. You're like, great advice, thank you. Just keep your chin up. In IELTS speaking, talking in part 1 about difficulties, you might say, even when I fail, I try to keep my chin up. Part 2, describing a challenge. You could say, one time I lost my job and my family encouraged me to keep my chin up. Part 3, talking about resilience, keeping going, stamina, resilience. It's important for people to keep their chin up in tough times. For people to keep their chin up in tough times. So just notice that, the change in my, your, his, her, there. Right. Good. So I know we've had 9 idioms. Stay calm. Keep your chin up. We're nearly at the end. The last one you may know. Number 10. Here it comes. Right. Number 10 is to touch base with someone. To touch base is, I think it's from baseball, where they have 4 bases and you run and touch the base and then you're safe. But notice the idiom is to touch base. To touch base. So the meaning idiomatically is to make brief contact with somebody, to update, check in, update on information and how things are going. Typically we can say with friends, right, well, let's touch base next week and finalize our plan. Okay, let's touch base. So in IELTS speaking, this could be used in part 1, talking about friends and communication. You could say, well, I live away from home, but I try to touch base with my family at least once a week. In part 2, you could describe work or a study project. You could say, I had to touch base with my manager to confirm the details. And in part 3, talking generally about workplace, collaboration, things like that, you could say, well, generally in business, it's important to touch base regularly to make sure everybody is on track. Okay, on track. Another idiom, following the correct path. On target, touch base. Okay, how often do you touch base with your friends and family? I wonder. Now, these idioms are, well, they're very natural. They're the kind of real idioms that native speakers use every day. And if you're in the IELTS speaking test, it's the kind of idiom that will not impress the examiner, but it'll catch their attention. It'll be like, ooh, that's nice, which is what you want, right? You want it to sound natural, context sensitive. That one thing is learning these. Another thing is actually being able to use them. I do understand that. So to help you a little bit, we've got this PDF. You can download this, you can review this, you can watch the video again, get the pronunciation, review them. There's a story and a song to help you review them, but start practicing them, start speaking them out loud, trying to use them in different contexts, especially for IELTS speaking, and slowly build them up. And once you're really confident, you can use them in the test. If you're not confident, just forget about it. Don't worry about it. At least you'll be able to understand them. If you want more idioms like this, join my YouTube channel membership. I'm doing an extra video with 5 extra idioms, real idioms like this, that are there, private, for members only. You can join for a monthly fee of $2. The price of a cup of coffee, well, depending on the country you live in, but more or less. And you know what? What you can also do is just join once and then binge watch everything and then unjoin if you want. I'll let you make up your mind, entirely up to you. But there's lots of videos there, extra videos for members only that you can get. Just go to the channel where it says subscribe. There's a little button next to that, says join. Click there and you're in. For me now, I'm gonna get a bite. It's very hungry work, right? All of this, and thirsty work. Stay out of trouble, don't get into hot water, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, my friend. All the best now. Bye-bye.